Hello, and welcome to Anime Audio Commentary. Today I'll be commenting on episode 13 of Code Geass. If you'd like to watch along, then start watching now. So last we left off, consequences will never be the same because Shirley's father died during that whole incident. You know, he was buried in rubble and essentially suffocated, which is a rather horrible way to go. And I guess worse yet, this is the first time Lelouch has sort of suffered personal consequences since donning the mantle of Zero. Not that, you know, Shirley's father was a father to him or anything, at least not that I know of, but you know, like, if it were up to him, I don't think he would have chosen to do something like this even for the continuation of his own goals. So, you know, this is effectively like a line that's being crossed even unknowingly. So, I feel like I've been put in sort of a weird position because that opening just now, that was a new one. And I do enjoy it, but I feel like it's vastly inferior to the first one. So, you know, I'm kind of torn on it. But that's neither here nor there. The important thing here is that Shirley's father is having his funeral, and, you know, to some degree, like, the priest on hand always has to say something kind of the deceased, but, you know, the idea that he was by all accounts a good and devout man, you know, that makes it that much worse, you know? And I guess worst of all is that his widow's not taking it very well. And to be fair, you know, you can't expect anyone to really take something like this in stride, but there's something unseemly, and maybe unseemly isn't quite the right word, but to break down at a funeral like this, something about that tugs at my heartstrings more than most things. Now, I guess the really interesting thing here is, how's Lelouch going to react to this? Because he is maybe not nominally responsible, but, like, his actions led to this, whether or not anybody really knows that. Oh. So this guy here, maybe a funeral isn't the time to say you had been supporting the Order of the Black Knights, you know. I mean, I think the right play here is basically, like, you know, to offer condolences and not run your mouth. Like, the guy does mean well, I'm sure, but, ooh, you know, that is something. That last little bit of the previous episode, Lelouch and Shirley shared a kiss, which was probably ill-advised, but, I mean, that's something. And I guess interestingly, this also highlights the dichotomy between Lelouch and Suzaku, because he's saying, like, this whole thing was bad business, you can't achieve lasting results by using the wrong methods. And to some degree he is correct, if only because doing things his way wouldn't have led to a senseless casualty like this. Although that said, I feel like the truth is still somewhere in between, You sort of have to thread the needle between idealism and pragmatism. And, man, like, I'm trying not to laugh, because this funeral was just happening, but every time I see, like, a Pizza Hut logo, like, how utterly incongruous to just cut to a shot of that before going back to this business in the graveyard. I guess, if nothing else, at least Shirley realizes that things weren't totally above board yesterday. She recognizes that the situation was sort of contrived and maybe she shouldn't have done that. But I feel like, maybe the solution here isn't to chastise her or anything. And it's not that Lelouch is doing that, but maybe just sort of like calm her down a little bit, because she doesn't seem to be in a good place, even if she was trying to put up a front before. I guess the idea here is that what's lacking in her life now is stability more than anything else. And maybe it wouldn't do for Lelouch to take up that position, but I don't know. It's a dilemma. And interestingly, like, there's a cardboard box with Pizza Hut's logo on it. Like, that's a big box. Did she order, like, enough pizzas to fill that box, or? Oh no, I think that's that little mascot. It came in a box. I mean, once again, I think I really just have to reiterate how utterly baffled I am by Pizza Hut and just the shameless product placement. See, I mean, on the one hand, it's silly, but I think it's been so widespread that it's looped back around from being silly to being funny. So C2 is, she's saying some stuff, and she might be out of line, but she might be right too. The idea is, like, you can't be moping about one death of one civilian just because you knew him, even if it is your fault. You don't have the luxury to sit around and mope. And that might very well be true, but by giving up the luxury to mope, do you also give up your humanity in the process? And in my mind, that's a pretty big price to pay. I don't think it's a price I would be willing to pay, more to the point. I guess the idea is, seeing as how far he's already gone, is this enough to derail everything? Or will Lelouch take this in his stride and work that much harder to prevent such senseless violence in the future? I mean, something tells me he's not really going to change his methods. He's still of the mindset that the ends justifies the means, but those means might become increasingly unpalatable to the normal people. And when you get down to it, like, that's what really matters, the normal people. That was, I believe I've stated, Lelouch's big sort of public victory by saying, the Order of the Black Knights cares about the little people. The government will kill citizens on a whim if it's convenient, but the Order of the Black Knight will stand up for those whom no one else stands up for. And I guess, in causing that landslide and killing civilians, he's sort of, stained their reputation. I mean, that's a rather kind way to put it. It's far more than that. That's, tantamount to proving their whole ideology is a farce, Like, I guess if the Britannian Empire were really on the ball, I guess, they'd be sending out all sorts of propaganda saying, hey, the Black Knights, like, killed these people in a landslide. They don't really care about you. And so, I guess, like, best case propaganda victory, you equate the Britannian Empire and the Black Knights. They are no different. effectively. So there's stuff going on, General Katase of the Liberation Front. He seems to be a big target. And the Japanese Liberation Front, they're in a real pinch because they don't really have the assets to do much of anything on their own. So I'm guessing this is Lelouch's plan here, to sort of fold the remainder of the Japanese Liberation Front into them. Or I guess at the very least earn a favor by saving them from Cornelia. And I guess that is sort of a sticking point for Lelouch, because he basically cornered Cornelia and then sort of tripped at the finish line, not through any fault of his own, but just because of unfortunate circumstances. So I guess as a point of pride, he would want to go after Cornelia and really give her what for. So I guess back with the Britannian Empire, Suzaku's facing his own challenges, because essentially he's tasked with going after Katase, but there's still the issue of prejudice and all that against 11s, because the Governor General, she distrusts him, but this guy here, who is seemingly his commanding officer more directly, he's more of a pragmatist. If Suzaku's loyal, then, lineage means less. Ooh. Okay, so this is more than just, something normal. This is essentially a test for promotion. So should he succeed, this directly advances Suzaku's goals of, gaining influence and power and changing things from within. And, up until this point, it's been presented largely as sort of a fool's errand. Lelouch has been presented as more correct, but I guess with the tangible opportunity to make lieutenant, that's sort of the first step, because I believe lieutenant is, I think that's the first sort of, commissioned officer, one of, the ranks that's sort of, a big deal, and then from there, you go up the ranks and all that. So Shirley is now being wrapped up in this. And I guess, fortunately for Lelouch, she seemed to have lost him. Yeah, this isn't good. I guess the idea here is that they're trying to figure out whether or not Lelouch is related to all this Zero business. Yeah. It makes sense that this woman has Jeremiah fresh on her mind, considering how thoroughly his reputation was destroyed. Ooh. So I'm wondering if something's going to happen here with Kalan, just because there's a little bit of tension between her and Lelouch. I get the feeling that there's going to be a triangle of sorts between her, Lelouch, and Shirley. Okay, so I guess it does make sense that Lelouch is effectively doubling down here. Because civilians have gotten caught up in things and died, this is precisely the reason why they can't quit, because doing so would render it a waste, and, it's just the ends justify the means in this case being the death of civilians. If they were to quit and give up now, then they would have died for nothing, so the only real way forward is to succeed. It's definitely a dangerous game to play. This is how you wake up one day and you find yourself standing atop a mountain of corpses. Because, Lelouch is effectively going to war with an empire here. This isn't something that's just gonna wrap itself up in a couple weeks or months. This is something that could potentially go on for years and rack up a body count, tens or hundreds of thousands if it breaks out into a full-blown war. Yeah, I think this is definitely sort of leaning towards the idea that maybe Lelouch is, not necessarily in over his head, but maybe he's not as necessarily correct as he was initially presented. Or perhaps that, the reality of the situation is more shades of gray than black and white. So unfortunately, this is not a good place for Shirley to be, and I get the feeling that she might not get caught in the crossfire, but Lelouch is going to go to great lengths to protect her, seemingly incongruously from an outside perspective, and perhaps even to his detriment. I mean, I'm sure unbeknownst to him, Shirley's being watched, and the fact that Zero would potentially go out of his way to protect her, that would be an interesting little data point, So I guess this is, Oh. Okay, yeah, this is, troubling for Suzaku. This isn't a battle, as he himself said. This is more of a massacre, really. And, if Lelouch wants to save Kitase, now's the time to start doing it. Things aren't going well. Ooh. Okay, that's bad. So the Japanese Liberation Front, they're surrendering on an open channel, but Suzaku was ordered to ignore it. And I do believe that such a thing like that is a war crime. And frankly, I can't imagine Suzaku would be willing to ignore something like that just out of pure moral principles, but I guess it depends. Is he more willing to do the right thing, or is he willing to gain power so that he can do the right thing in the future? I would hope it's the former. I would hope that he'd rather risk a promotion than just butcher surrendering troops. But I guess Lelouch is sort of rendering that mood. But at the same time, he's blowing up an ostensibly friendly ship. I mean, no doubt the Japanese Liberation Front weren't intent on doing that. Ooh. Yeah, this is definitely underhanded, because they definitely didn't plan on doing that, the Japanese Liberation Front. But I guess from Lelouch's perspective, it's something that will inflame the passions of the Order of the Black Knight. Essentially, these guys sacrificed themselves. We cannot let their sacrifice be in vain. I mean, I think that really is an unambiguously evil thing to do. I guess the question is, will it work? And more to the point, will it be worth it? Man, I'm still just sort of blown away by that, especially considering that he was so upset about one specific civilian being killed. For him to just effectively kill an entire ship's worth of people like that. Man. So I guess perhaps tellingly, Suzaku smells a rat, He's not certain that this whole thing is as it appears to be, but I feel like there's no real concrete evidence that he could point to. It would only be mere suspicion. Man, so the counterattack is apparently highly effective so far. I mean, Cornelia wasn't even in her nightmare frame, and I'd imagine mounting up is something that takes precious time when seconds matter. But I guess to her credit, even sort of caught off guard like she is, she's relatively formidable. Although, oh, interesting. Lelouch is challenging her personally, essentially. But I guess here's that wrinkle. Shirley showed up, and that gave him just the pause Cornelia and Suzaku needed to sort of turn the tides, I guess. So I guess this is the flaw in Lelouch, for want of a better term. You know, he claims that you have to kill civilians to get things done, but he's unwilling to kill Shirley. So, in a sense, he can't even live up to his own ideals. But it's probably for the best that he is unwilling to gun her down immediately. You know, even if he ultimately would have pulled the trigger, he stopped for just long enough to not have to go through with it. So unfortunately for Lelouch, he's not really in a good position fighting against Suzaku. Yeah, I mean, things aren't going well for him. He's not exactly a renowned pilot, I would imagine, but I guess the question is, what now? Because surely he couldn't get captured, right? And I guess there's the issue with the Guren Mark II, because I do believe it was... I don't recall if it was pitted against the Lancelot or not, but I feel like if anything would be a match for the Lancelot, it would be that machine. Ooh. Oh dear indeed. Shirley is going to be tested now. You know, is she willing to kill Zero for what he's done? I mean, I guess obviously she can't kill Lelouch, but... Oh. Oh dear indeed. This is perhaps the most interesting outcome. Alright, well that's it for this episode. If you've enjoyed it, then by all means, tune in for the next one. See you, Space Cowboy.